Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you had a great weekend. Today is August 25th, 2025, and this is your Monday market update. Now, after 4 straight quiet down sessions, roughly, stocks snapped back on Friday when Chair Powell said that the Fed may need to cut and would proceed carefully. Traders pushed September cut odds higher, yields fell, the dollar slipped, and the Dow finished at a record into the close on Friday. That's the spoiler, so let's go back and let's recap day by day, and let's preview this big week ahead. It was a low-volume, range-bound start with headlines circling geopolitics and housing sentiment easing a touch. Bond moves were contained, and sector leadership was inconclusive. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ all flat on the day on Monday. Profit-taking hit mega-cap tech on Tuesday, while housing starts beat, but permits softened. A hawkish today, dovish later mix. Rotation away from mega cap techs into cyclicals ahead of the Fed minutes. The Dow was flat on the day, S&P 500 down 0.5%, and the NASDAQ was down 1.5%. On Wednesday, the FOMC minutes leaned a bit hawkish on inflation risks, but markets recovered much of an early tech-led dip as investors looked through the nuance toward that Jackson Hole speech. The Dow was flat on the day, the S&P 500 down 0.25%, and the NASDAQ was down 0.75%. On Thursday, weekly jobless claims and retail headlines, it kept an early risk-off tone, while flash PMIs signal manufacturing resilience. Energy firmed on the inventory data. Breadth improved into the close as markets set up for that Powell speech. The Dow was down 0.25%, S&P 500 down 0.5%, and the NASDAQ was down 0.75%. On Friday, Powell lit the fuse, or so it seems. At Jackson Hole, Powell kept the door open to cuts as labor risks and inflation cools in trend terms. Rates and the dollar fell, cyclicals and small cap caught a bid, and the tape finished on the highs. The Dow was up about 2%, S&P up about 1.5%, and the NASDAQ was up about 2%. For the week that was relatively sleepy most of the week, the indices ended mostly higher. The Dow was up 1.5%, S&P up 0.25%, and the NASDAQ was down 0.5%. Let's take a look and let's preview this coming week. It is actually going to be a pretty important week. Why does this week really matter? The market's now pricing in a September cut. This week's core PCE, the Fed's preferred gauge for inflation, and Nvidia earnings, they can confirm or challenge that trajectory. The big action comes midweek, though, through the news flow. The news flow out of DC this weekend may take some air out of the room, so we'll have to see. We will get Nvidia earnings on Wednesday. Then Thursday we'll get GDP and weekly jobless claims. Then Friday we'll get the Fed's favorite inflation gauge, the PCE. And we'll all see sentiment and inflation expectations from the University of Michigan. In case you've not had enough of the Fed, we'll get Fed heads back, Logan, Williams, and Waller. Now, if you did miss Friday's video, it gave a bit of some additional color on the Fed. So if you want to know a little bit more about what's going on in the Fed, check that out. We will get earnings from Dell and CrowdStrike and a few others, but those will probably be overshadowed by Nvidia and probably the PCE. Overall, last Friday was a reminder that one speech can flip a week, but the leadership remains narrow and data dependent. The one thing that really does not change is the plan. Stay diversified, tax aware, and aligned to your plan rather than to any single print or any press conference. If core PCE behaves and Nvidia reassures on demand, the soft landing with cuts narrative holds. If not, volatility likely returns. Quick reminder, this is the last August Monday update, and next week, Monday is Labor Day. So we'll catch up on Tuesday. Let's watch all of that together, and we'll keep it all in the right perspective. Have a great week.